Good morning. My name is Katie Shaw. Thank you for letting me speak with you today. I hope you see why I think that House Bill 453 is so important. I would like to share a little about my wonderful life. I am 36 years old in Indianapolis, Indiana. It was 59 degrees in Indiana. Then we arrived here last night. I think you beat us through summer. My parents found out I had Down syndrome when Mom was pregnant. Thankfully, the doctors never mentioned abortion. They said I would need surgery the day I was born and start planning what would help me have a wonderful life. I came home on my mom's 29th birthday to help her have a wonderful life. And I have helped many have wonderful lives just like you. Because you were given the chance. I have been given wonderful opportunities like all my friends with or without Down syndrome. I learned sign language, was a Girl Scout, played 5 sports, and managed a high school softball team. I learned to play piano and violin. I received First Holy Communion and was confirmed in my faith. I got a certificate of high school completion. I had taken mostly regular ed classes except math and economics. Math is not my forte. Then I got my high school literacy diploma and early childhood associate certificate from Ivy Tech Community College. After 5 years in childcare, I changed careers and have been in retail over 10 years. I love helping the customers. I'm on the board and volunteer at Down syndrome, Indiana. I enter data into the computer, talk with school-aged children about how people with disabilities have a lot more in common than different from them, and I have spoken with medical residents about caring for people with Down syndrome. I help care for my grandparents when they lived with us, cooking, giving insulin, and whatever they needed when my folks went home. We taught each other a lot about wonderful lives. I have a busy life, but it is a wonderful life, probably just like most of you. I share these things because I believe every life is a wonderful gift. But the older I get, the more I realize not everyone sees that. That is why I wanted to start helping unborn babies especially. Some women say that House Bill 453 is burning them when they're just trying to get informed decisions about their health care. But given a chance, doctors can educate and help the mother see what a wonderful life her baby can have. That would help the mother's health and the baby's health. It is a wonderful life. It is a movie how one man being born helped make the world wonderful for so many. His life was not perfect or go as he had planned. There were sorrow, money problems, and illness. But there is so much more of love, happiness, and joy. Every person in this room, with or without Down syndrome, has experienced those things. That is part of each person's wonderful life. Thank you again for letting me speak. I hope you will help pass House Bill 453. Help those with Down syndrome have a chance, like us. Make the world more wonderful. I will close with a quote from a wonderful author who said, "I will praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, I know full well." Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Next up, I have Dr. Lee, Dr. Sandra Lee.
That was wonderful. Thank you, honored members of the Senate Health Committee. I am a PhD scientist with extensive experience directing a lab that developed and performed DNA testing on children. I am currently the Senior Fellow and Director of Life Sciences at the Charlotte Lozier Institute. Babies are being aborted at an alarming rate after receiving a positive prenatal lab result for Down syndrome. Once an unborn baby is diagnosed or considered at risk of Down syndrome, he or she has on average a 67% chance of being aborted. This modern day form of eugenics has caused a significant reduction in the Down syndrome population, leading states to pass bills like HB453 to protect babies against disability discrimination. What's concerning is that standard prenatal tests do not accurately predict the risk of Down syndrome. There is a high false positive rate of incorrect reporting. This means that a mother is told her baby has a high risk of Down syndrome when in fact the baby carries no risk at all and may be pressured to terminate the pregnancy based on this inaccurate result. The non-invasive prenatal screening DNA test uses fetal DNA found in the mother's blood to screen for Down syndrome. This is the predominant method endorsed by all major medical organizations to be used as the primary screening test in all women, including those at risk of carrying a child with Down syndrome. This test will never be a diagnostic test that can be definitively report a person's known risk of having Down syndrome because it analyzes only fragments of DNA, not the entire genome of the baby. A 2014 US study of nearly 2,000 pregnant women who had received a DNA screening test confirmed this fact. Their study found that a significant proportion, greater than 50% of DNA screening results reported a positive for Down syndrome as likely not, in fact, truly positive when screening women mostly at low risk. I encourage you to support this.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to move on in the interest of time. I apologize.
Okay.
Thank you for being here today. Next up, we have Dr. Wing Ng.
Thank you. My name is Wing Ng, and I am a physician in the field of rehabilitation medicine, specializing in traumatic brain injuries. Many of the people I take care of have such devastating injuries that it's hard to see how they can regain any quality of life. Still, many parents would come to me pleading for a fighting chance for their child. Because no doctor can really predict with complete certainty how things will turn out, I work hard to give my patients that fighting chance, not knowing the ultimate outcome. When Jaden was born 13 years ago with Down syndrome, we had no idea what the future would hold. Since then, we have seen what a blessing she is and how she has touched so many people. Through Jaden, her friends have learned to be more compassionate towards people who are different from them. Because of Jaden, her second grade teacher decided to go into special education to help children like her. We too have become better people because of her. Who knows what the future holds, but we believe God has a special purpose for her life. We continue to fight for her to succeed, not because we expect her to earn a living, but because she is a child of God, created in His image. We as Americans take pride in ensuring that people with disabilities are not discriminated against. But isn't the abortion of babies with Down syndrome a form of discrimination? When we choose to value the life of a woman over that of the unborn child with Down syndrome, we have gone against the spirit of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The euphemistic notions of women's choice and reproductive health hide the ugly truth that this is the killing of innocent lives. And when babies are aborted for having Down syndrome, we are killing a piece of our own humanity. Babies with Down syndrome have every right to exist as God intended. They should be afforded that fighting chance to live and to succeed, just as my Jaden did. Please support House Bill 453. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ng. Next up, we have Dr. Ng's daughter, Jaden.
Hi, my name is Jaden and I have Down syndrome. I know in my heart I am God's child and I love my life. I live with my mom, my dad, and my sister. I like to play basketball and play with my sister. And I also like swimming. I like soccer and rugby and my yoga. My favorite strokes in swimming is butterfly and breaststroke. I was born in August 5, 2007 in Cary. When I was born, I had a lot of problems. But now I am better. I finally found a Christian school for me because it is closer to our home. I've been there for 5 years, but now I am homeschooled. I love being homeschooled because I can spend time with my mom and I like to study. I also do piano and horseback riding. I like riding horses after a run. I am 13 years old, and I'll be 14 years old soon in the summer. I swim for exercise and lifetime fitness. I like horses a lot. Thank you.
And she wrote that all by herself.
Wow.
Thank you. Good job, Jaden. Next up, we have Alicia Latour.
Hello, my name is Alicia Latour. I'm a wife and a mother of 7 amazing kids, and this is part of my story. It was 2013, and I went in for a routine checkup knowing I was pregnant for the 5th time. Not just not knowing how far along I was. A very prominent OBGYN here in North Carolina had ordered an ultrasound and suggested I drop by the office for a quick check to see how far along I was. I went to this appointment alone, expecting this appointment to be super fast with a quick update on my due date. As I lay on the ultrasound table, I heard the technician say, I'm going to need you to wait in the office as I call the doctor. Immediately there was a red flag in my mind as I knew that my OBGYN had surgeries planned all day at the hospital. My OBGYN for 10 plus years came down the hall and I could hear her discussing the ultrasound with the ultrasound tech and what she had found. She came into the waiting area with her horrified look on her face. Alicia, this isn't good. It's just not good. We need to talk. She said as she shook her head. I followed her to the office alone and sat down at her desk. She was visibly shaken. Alicia, there's a problem. Something's wrong with the baby. As she laid out the different scenarios in her office that day of what would possibly cause what we were seeing on the ultrasound, multiple times she said to me, do you understand what this means? Do you understand that forever you will have to care for this child? It's a lifelong commitment. Alicia, you have other kids to think about. After all the doctor's information, she looked at me and said, what do you want to do? How do you want to take care of this? Well, now this is where the story takes a turn. See, I believe that life begins at conception. I believe that God's word is true. And when it says, I have knit you together in your mother's womb, I believe that every human being is put here on this earth for a purpose. I believe that no matter what your race or disability, that God can use you in a powerful way. I only have 30 seconds. So after parenting this little boy for 7 years, his name is Joel, I'm here to advocate for all the other special blessing kiddos of North Carolina. I'm asking you to give them a chance to show you how wonderful they are and leave a huge impact on the society. I, along with parents all over North Carolina, are asking you to be a voice for the unborn kiddos with Down syndrome and support HB453.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ms. Ashley Kill, her son Hayden.
Hi, my name is Ashley Keel, and this is my son Hayden. Fear is a strong motivator. Fear can make you do things you wouldn't normally do. Imagine for a moment that you're a young 21-year-old woman pregnant with your first child. You go to your appointment and the doctor walks in and says, we have the results of your prenatal genetic testing, and I'm sorry to tell you that your child has a 60% chance of having Down syndrome. He then proceeds to tell you that don't worry, you have options. You can choose to abort your child to prevent your child from having to go through these hardships. What do you think that mother's choice would be? Over 70% of prenatal diagnoses end in abortion because of fear. Fear that your doctor instills in you of the unknown. When my son was born, our pediatrician came in and told us that our son had characteristics of Down syndrome. She then proceeded to tell us that we would not be able to afford his medical care and turned around and told us, "You'll need to find a new doctor," and walked out of our room. We were shocked and fearful for our son and his future. Doctors will tell you that you will not be able to prepare this child for life. They're wrong. They push and push. Doctors do not tell you the unending love and joy and laughter your child will bring into your life. Being a parent is hard. It's never easy. There will always be some struggle, no matter if your child has Down syndrome or not. Please support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Paige Bryden. If I pronounced that right.
My name is Paige Bryden. I am the wife of Carter and the mother of Mac 22 and Miller 24. Miller has Down syndrome. Today's worldview offers something that looks like freedom, but ends in bondage. But God offers something that looks like bondage and ends in freedom. At 24 years old, an abortion promised me complete freedom from an unplanned pregnancy. In great distress, I grabbed that offer. I had the abortion. But soon bondage rode in like a flood in the form of depression, shame, guilt, and a string of bad decisions. I was a wreck. Fast forward 12 years. Now 36 and married, I delivered our first child, Miller. Much to everyone's surprise, Miller was diagnosed with Down syndrome. Our dreams of a corporate superstar were dashed. The weight of the unknown, the medical and cognitive implications, and the longevity of this assignment overwhelmingly created a sense of bondage, like an enormous ball and chain. I personally wondered if this was God's retribution for the abortion. I got it, and I accepted it. But as Miller grew, so did an awakening in our lives. Miller is filled with kindness, tenderness, and compassion. He loves the unlovable, and he touches the untouchable. Miller's love knows no boundaries. We have never experienced this before. The short-term materialism we had been living for has been replaced with a desire to be like Miller. We are changed people, and for the better because of Miller. I thought God had given me a special needs child so I could teach him how to live. But the truth is, I was the one with special needs, and God gave me Miller to teach me how to live. For the sake of our humanity, for all things kind and tender and compassionate, please pass the Human Life Non-Discrimination Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Sergeant Arms, I think we have 2 additional speakers. Is that all you have on your list?
We have several more.
Several more, okay. Next up, Julie Scott Emmons.
Hello, my name is Julie Scott Emmons, and I am representing the North Carolina Values Coalition. The stories you've heard today, the faces, the names, the smiles, all point to one thing. The fact that every single person, regardless of how many chromosomes they have, has inherent dignity and worth and unlimited potential. This bill puts a hedge of protection around an entire class of human beings that should not have to pass a genetic test to be born. Please allow me to share a vision for North Carolina. May our beautiful state be a place where goodness, truth, and beauty in every single individual is embraced, where all babies are welcome, where differences are celebrated, where the focus is on ability, not disability, and a place where true tolerance, inclusion, and justice begin in the womb. Nelson Mandela once said that there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. North Carolina, it is time to join the rising number of states that have passed similar legislation. We respectfully and humbly ask you to support this bill.
Thank you. Next up, we have Sue Swayze, is it legal?
Yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Senators. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm Sue Liebel. I'm with the Susan B. Anthony List, the nation's largest pro-life political and policy organization. In his concurring opinion in Box versus Planned Parenthood of Indiana and Kentucky, Justice Clarence Thomas announced a compelling interest in preventing abortion from becoming a tool of modern-day eugenics. Well, Justice Thomas was correct, but he's a little late to the game. It's happening right before our eyes, and you're still allowing it here in North Carolina, which is why House Bill 453 is so critical. Frankly, it's been a societal norm for many years, but it's wrong. It's a slippery slope toward eliminating unwanted people, and it brings much regret to heartache to families. We appreciate your bold leadership to call this what it is. And we ask you to come alongside North Carolina families who need your support and your protection. You're on solid ground here. Polling in the United States conducted just a year ago found that 70% of Americans, including 56% of those who identify as pro-choice, oppose abortion based on the expectation that an unborn child may have Down syndrome. Just like so many other pitfalls of Roe versus Wade, states are catching on that you can legally assert a compelling interest in protecting unborn humans from discrimination. Almost 20 states have now passed this discrimination bill in some form or another. You're in good company. And there's hope because the Sixth Circuit recently upheld Ohio's non-discrimination law and left the door open for further consideration. Legally, the push continues without hesitation. Morally, you've got to do the right thing. A disability diagnosis should never be a death sentence, especially in a society like ours that prides itself on diversity and inclusiveness. It's time our laws caught up with our basic compassion and overwhelming public opinion. Even in difficult situations, medicine has something better to offer than abortion. Thank you.
Thank you. We are running short on time. I hate for someone to come down here and not be allowed to speak, so if we could drop the time to 1 minute for the remaining speakers. If you wish to waive your time, you can, but I don't want you to drive all the way down here and not have a chance to speak. I don't have the remainder of the list. It's going to be up to you.
Next is Tara Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Tara Muller. I'm a policy attorney at Disability Rights North Carolina. We oppose this bill. People with disabilities for decades have faced restrictions on their body and what they can do with their body. We face limitations on where we can work, where we can go to school, whether we can work, whether we can get our health care when we need it. We don't need any more restrictions, especially not those that are in the name of people supporting disabilities. Forcing people to carry a pregnancy to term does nothing to advance the rights of people with disabilities. We ask you to consider other ways to support people with disabilities, and there are lots of ways. There are 15,000 people right now in North Carolina with intellectual disabilities who are waiting for basic services. There is a bill pending right now that we just heard about, the organ discrimination bill. That one doesn't have a requirement that a doctor ask questions to the patient or a bar for the reasons why.
I'm sorry, we have a committee meeting
One
right
minute is
after
awfully
this one.
short, Mr. Chair.
So
Thank you.
for your time. Next speaker, please.
Dr. Matt Zervin.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Matt Zerden, and I'm a board-certified OBGYN practicing the full spectrum of obstetrical and gynecological care here in North Carolina. I'm here to speak in strong opposition to House Bill 453. Leading medical organizations agree that comprehensive reproductive health care, including abortion, is essential. And if I'm appearing a bit fatigued this morning, it's because I've spent the last 60 hours since Friday caring for patients in the hospital, including working last night. And in that span, I've helped women decide if medicine or surgery was best for an ectopic pregnancy. I've told a patient she would be delivering at 30 weeks. And I've had to rush into a room to tell a patient I've never met that I'm taking her for an emergency C-section. None of these conversations were easy, but these scenarios, my patients trusted me to give them the best medical advice. If House Bill 453 went into effect, I wouldn't be able to do that in all scenarios. This bill inappropriately inserts politics into essential health care. I urge you to reject House Bill 453. Thank you.
Thank you.
Liz?
Good morning, I'm Liz Barber, Policy Analyst with the American Civil Liberties Union of North Carolina. House Bill 453 comes out of a national playbook, not of bills fighting racism or stigma for people with disabilities, not of bills promoting better services or supports for people and families with disabilities, but out of anti-abortion laws designed to erode abortion access and push it out of reach of many. HB 453 is about undermining a person's fundamental constitutional rights to abortion and privacy. Every federal court to consider the question agrees that a state cannot ban abortions based on a patient's reason. The Sixth Circuit decision that everybody is referencing and saying says that this bill would be constitutional is totally different. Quoting from that case, the court said, even under the full force of HB 214, that's the Ohio law, a woman in Ohio who does not want a child with Down syndrome may lawfully obtain an abortion solely for that reason. HB 214 does not prohibit her from choosing or obtaining an abortion. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, sorry about the shortness of time.
Jill Coward?
Good morning. My name's Jill Coward. Thank you for this opportunity. I represent CWA, Concerned Women for America. We are the largest women's nonprofit organization that lobbies for the family. We've watched these precious families as they've bravely spoken for life, and they should not have to apologize to anyone for their children's uniqueness. Each one was created by a loving God for the purpose of glorifying God. Who are we to issue the death penalty for an unborn member of society because humanity deems them unworthy of their first breath of life? In a day when our culture so intentionally and loudly proclaims discrimination, who in this room has such a right to cancel any of these precious children? What gives them the right to cancel out these children or any others like them? I urge you to please vote in favor of HB 453, Human Life Non-Discrimination Act. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Rustin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm John Rustin, President of the North Carolina Family Policy Council. We wholeheartedly support House Bill 453. In addition to the critically important statutory language that this bill would add into North Carolina law, I'd like to direct your attention to the first two whereas statements, which I think are critically important as well. It says, it is well established that human life begins at conception and continues in an unbroken progression through birth until death. Every individual on this continuum is a human being, meaning a member of the species Homo sapiens. Whereas all human beings from conception through death have intrinsic dignity and worth, human dignity includes the inherent right not to suffer discrimination on the basis of innate characteristics such as a human being's race, sex, or genetic characteristics, including any genetic abnormalities. We plead with you to pass this critically important legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Bill Pincus?
Good morning. Gentlemen, I am Dr. Bill Pincus, the president of North Carolina Right to Life. When society says that we can get rid of a person because they don't meet the cultural mandates for perfection, we are all in trouble. It is not a political issue. It is not a Democrat or Republican issue. It's a societal issue. It has to do with life and respecting people for who they are. Could we determine if a person fails a test, they are terminated? An innocent person. Think about that. Down syndrome advocate Kurt Condrich poses this question. As prenatal testing advances, will we get a prenatal test excuse me, for autism? How about depression? How about baldness? How about ADHD? How about OCD? How about for those who are short or have brown hair? This is the ultimate form of discrimination. Please support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Lana Witt?
morning, co-chairs. Thank you for opening public comment regarding House Bill 453. Having lived and served Chinese English educators in People's Republic of China beginning in 2001, I'm aware firsthand of the effects of eugenics and its influences through policies of the government, like the one-child policy in China. Our family, my husband, still a Chinese citizen in 2013, was impacted by a false positive diagnosis of Down syndrome, and we were advised by our doctor to abort the baby. Our son, a now healthy 7-year-old, was safely birthed stateside because I'm an American citizen, and we had a place to go. Our daughter is here. She is a healthy 9-year-old. Our second born is a healthy 7-year-old because we had a place to go. I encourage you to support House Bill 453. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Kelsey McLean.
Hi, my name is Kelsey McLean, and I'm here today to speak out against HB453, a bill that tries to equate abortion to eugenics, but is in reality a racist attack on reproductive freedom. This bill disregards the generational harms created by state-sponsored eugenics programs and policies. This bill, like other failed reason bans from around the country, weaponizes racist and ableist assumptions about the reasons behind abortion decisions, and has the power to inflict additional harm on pregnant North Carolinians. I'm someone who's had an abortion. The overwhelming narrative I've heard from people opposed to this bill is that the reasons motivating abortions are hatred, racism, eugenics. People make abortion decisions out of necessity, out of desperation, out of love. It is never rooted in hate. You need to quit trying to weaponize our decision-making against us. One thing everybody in this room that had the choice to have an abortion got the benefit of was choice. They got to have conversations with your doctors, and what you were trying to do is prevent people from having the same rights that everybody else had. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Is this the last one?
There's two more. Andrea, George, and then Rachel.
Thank you. I'm a private citizen who's worked in the school system and in group homes with people with disabilities. And I just want to say that they're the most compassionate, loving people who I've ever come across. And each parent that I've come across that says, this little one has changed our lives for the better. Thank you.
Thank you. And last speaker.
Rachel.
No Rachel? And that's it, right?
That's it.
Okay, members.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Krovic, you're recognized.
I just wanted to respond to the lady who spoke from the disability rights. I completely agree. She mentioned the innovation waiver wait list. I have been fighting very hard to reduce that list. In our last budget, we had a plan to reduce it by 1,000 slots per year. The governor vetoed that budget, so it didn't happen, but I will not stop until we get those waivers, that wait list down. So thank you for reminding me of that.
Thank you, Senator Krovic. Members, we are out of time. It's time to switch out the committee room. I do have a motion from Senator Johnson. And the motion is for a favorable report for the bill with referral to Judiciary. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like signs. The bill passes. H453. Thank you. This committee meeting is adjourned.
Hi, Katie. Welcome to North Carolina. We're so happy to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
Where did you travel from yesterday?
Indianapolis, Indiana.
I bet it was a long trip.
Yes, it was 10 hours long.
Wow. And then we come and bring you to the General Assembly and you do all sorts of wonderful speaking for us.
Thank you. I love it.
Good. So why was it important for you to come to North Carolina today?
For people like me that have a disability, and for the most defenseless, like the unborn, to get the word out and to say that it's okay, that people like us are no different than anybody else.
That's excellent. So you've done a wonderful job speaking to those two committees.
Thank you.
You've done great.
Thanks.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell the people of North Carolina?
always choose adoption over abortion. And because adoption is the best over adoption any minute of any day.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Katie. We're very glad you're here today.
Thank you.
It's estimated that 70% of all babies with a diagnosis of Down syndrome are aborted. Positive results from these prenatal tests can be wrong 50% of the time. And according to the New England Journal of Medicine, a mother's DNA can also alter those test results, leading parents and their doctors to believe that their babies have major disorders when in fact they are very healthy. So the question is, should children have to pass a genetic test in order to be born? I don't think they should. Laws in this country prevent discrimination based on sex, race, or disability. Citizens are protected against discrimination in the educational system, the judicial system, the workforce, housing authority, almost all walks of life. Those citizens are protected. Yet babies with these same characteristics are aborted simply because of their race or their disability. This is eugenics in its worst form. This Human Life Non-Discrimination Act will end that atrocity. The Supreme Court has ruled overwhelmingly in favor of rights of people who have disabilities based on race, sex, and disability discrimination. We have the Civil Rights Act, we have the Rehabilitation Act, we have the Americans with Disabilities Acts to protect citizens against discrimination based on sex, race, or disability. Also, many states have laws. It's time to include our tiniest citizens in this same protection. It's time to stop the practice of eugenics abortion, which is the ultimate tool of discrimination. The definition of eugenics, according to Merriam-Webster, is the practice or advocacy of controlled selective breeding of human populations to improve the population's genetic composition. And as many of you know, North Carolina has had a history of eugenics, and we remedied that. This is another form of eugenics that I hope that we will also end in North Carolina, that it won't be a part of our history here. And I would appreciate your support, and I'm going to turn over to Representative Art to make some comments as well. He's one of the co-sponsors.
Representative Art. Thank you, colleagues. I appreciate the opportunity to present this bill as well. As Senator Provick said, this bill prevents modern-day eugenics that eliminate people before birth because of their race, sex, or disability of the Down syndrome. And we have had a history of terrible history with eugenics in our state. And the fundamental question is, why should we allow North Carolina to continue discriminatory eugenics that eliminate children before birth because of race, sex, or Down syndrome? Haven't we learned how terrible it is for this state to participate or even allow modern day eugenics to eliminate people before birth because of a disability or their race? Reprehensible eugenics doesn't stop at the forced sterilization of women, but also must extend to abortion of children because they have Down syndrome or of a certain race. I ask that you support the bill and pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Art. Senator Provitt, do we have any questions or comments from members of the committee? Senator Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a question for the bill sponsor. If this bill were to become law, would it be the first time in our state that the government is requiring a doctor to ask a patient why she was choosing to end her pregnancy?
Senator Crump.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Currently, Senator Marcus, it is not legal for abortions because of sex selection. So that is the only reason that in North Carolina, for any other reason, you can seek an abortion, but not for sex selection.
Follow-up.
Follow-up, Senator Marks.
With respect, Senator, that's not exactly what I asked. I'm asking whether, I believe this is the first time that that the government would be putting an affirmative duty on a doctor to ask a pregnant person why she's ending her pregnancy. Is that true?
I'm going to refer this to staff.
Well, I could certainly do that, but we're not requiring, see, here's the issue with this bill. We're not requiring the doctors to say or do anything here. What we're doing is we're simply saying, if you look on page 2, line 39, it says, a person shall not intentionally or knowingly perform, induce, or attempt to perform or induce an abortion of an unborn child if the abortion is being sought because of an actual presumed race or sex of the unborn child or because of the presence of a presumed Down syndrome. And then if you look on line 50, it says a statement by the physician confirming that the woman did not tell the physician and the physician has reason to believe that the woman did not seek the abortion because of the unborn child's actual or presumed race or sex or the presence of a Down syndrome. So we're not controlling the speech of the doctor. We're simply, in this bill, providing that they submit a statement. If they have reason to believe that that's why the woman is seeking an abortion for a Down syndrome, then they cannot perform that abortion. We're not eliciting a statement from the doctor.
Follow-up?
Follow-up, Senator Marks.
Again, with respect, you're saying we're not eliciting a statement from the doctor, but this bill does require that the physician report after the abortion happened and to basically tell the government if the doctor believes that any of these factors that you've laid out in the bill as unacceptable reasons were even one of the reasons, correct? So that is requiring the doctor to report.
On that. That's the statement, yes.
Okay. And then along with that, yes, please. During the conversation that a doctor has with his or her patient about the fetal diagnosis and what the choices are, is it allowed for the doctor to tell his or her patient that her right to have an abortion might be denied if she were to share with the doctor that any of the factors listed in your bill are part of her consideration? Or is the doctor permitted to say, maybe like a lawyer might say, don't tell me anything you don't want me to report to the state, and then let's have this conversation? Because I'm very concerned that this bill gets between that very important private conversation between the pregnant person and her doctor.
Quite simply, this bill doesn't compel doctor speech at all. It just simply does exactly what's written here, and that a statement must be provided in the regulation of the medical practice about that in order to comply and not have a discriminatory abortion, the doctor has to submit that statement. We don't compel the doctor's speech at all.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask about a different detail of the bill?
I think Senator Crowley has a response as well.
Senator Marcus, I just wanted to add, we currently have lots of reporting that the doctor has to do already. The gestational age of the child, for example. So there are reports that do have to be filed telling the nature of the abortion, the gestational age of the child, and that sort of thing.
But never before the reason why. That's never been part of a government-required report before.
I believe somebody's legislative analysis might could.
Jason Moran Bates is working on this bill.
Mr. Moran Bates.
Jason Moran Bates, legislative analysis. Under the current law, I do not believe the doctor has any duty to ask anything like that, correct?
Mr. Chair, could I ask about the other detail of the bill that I was hoping to?
Yes, Senator Marks.
Thank you. The fact that this is listing certain reasons that aren't allowed, I'd like to delve into that a little bit. What would happen in a case where a woman as is often the case, might have multiple reasons for choosing an abortion. And if one of her reasons was her decision that she did not feel like she could raise a child with Down syndrome, that's one of her reasons. But another one of her reasons is, for example, the pregnancy is a result of rape. By my reading of this bill, she would not be entitled to choose an abortion in that case, because one of the factors was one that you're saying is unacceptable. Is that how you read this bill? Is that the intent? And if so, do we need to amend it?
Representative Barr.
Yep. Very succinctly, we don't govern the woman's wishes for an abortion or any manner. We don't govern the conversation between the doctor and the patient. What we do govern in this bill is the medical practice of the doctor, and it quite simply says that a person shall not intentionally or knowingly perform and induce an abortion if the reason why is one of those three things. Simply because of the sex, the presumed race, or the presumed or actual presence of Down syndrome.
Follow-up?
Follow-up, Senator Marcus.
A couple of...
And Senator Marcus, you can limit it to about 2 or 3 because we got a whole bunch.
Okay, well, this was added at the last minute. I think I'm the only member here that wants to ask about these things, but I think it's really important. And what you're saying, Representative Arp, is that you're not restricting the woman's choices, you're just restricting her doctor's ability to give her what she's choosing, and to me that's the same thing. So I don't understand that distinction, but specifically, what I'm trying to get at is, I think your bill says that if any of the reasons that you've listed as unacceptable are any one of the reasons why she's choosing, in other words, it's a factor, it's a reason, that says that her doctor cannot give her an abortion. And what I'm trying to get at is, there may be multiple reasons. And I think this bill is saying to women in that situation that it doesn't matter if you were raped, it doesn't matter if you have too many mouths to feed and you're choosing, it doesn't matter if your own life is at risk. If any one of the reasons is that your baby has a diagnosis of Down syndrome, then your doctor cannot give you the choice that you want. And I guess I'm asking, why would we have a bill that limits her constitutional right to make those choices if just one of the factors is one that you see as unacceptable reason?
Because it's discriminatory. If the reason that the child is being sought to be destroyed is because they have Down syndrome, that's discriminatory.
Not the reason, but a reason is what I'm trying to get at.
Does that make it any less discriminatory?
Okay, I guess we just fundamentally disagree. I think we need to, well, I'll be voting against this bill for a variety of reasons, and that's one of them.
Not a surprise. So, do we have any other questions or comments from committee members? Senator Fitch.
What is the penalty for the doctor failing the act as prescribed in this legislation?
The medical profession is charged with operating within the confines of the law. This bill prescribes no additional penalties that would otherwise exist and currently exist.
Is it fine? Follow
up, Senator Fitch.
Is it fine? Is it imprisonment? What is the punishment? Without saying what the medical board is required to do, what is the punishment for the doctor?
I believe staff answers, but I believe it'd be a civil penalty. And well, Ms. Bedford.
General Statute 90-21.122 lays out civil remedies. That's where the penalty is found.
So he gonna pay a fine?
It appears there are costs.
Use the abortion.
Any other questions or comments from members of the committee on Senate Bill 453? Seeing none, we have several folks who have signed up in the audience. I would like to first call Dr. Wing. I apologize. Ing.
Thank you. My name is Wing Ing. I'm a physician specializing in traumatic brain injuries. Many of the people I take care of have such devastating injuries that it's hard to see how they could regain any quality of life. Still, many parents would come to me pleading for a chance for their child, not knowing the ultimate outcome. When Jaden was born 13 years ago with Down syndrome, we had no idea what the future would hold. Since then, we have seen how she has touched so many people. Her friends have learned to be more compassionate towards others who are different from them. Because of Jaden, her second grade teacher decided to go into special education to help children like her. Who knows what the future holds, but we believe that God has a special purpose for her life. She is a child of God, created in His image. We as Americans take pride in ensuring that people with disabilities are not discriminated against. But isn't the abortion of babies with Down syndrome a form of discrimination? When we choose to value the right of the woman over the life of the unborn child with Down syndrome, we have gone against the spirit of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I ask for your support for House Bill 453.
Thank you, Mr. Wing. Next we have Ms. Jade Wing.
Hi, my name is Jaden, and I have Down syndrome. I know in my heart I'm God's child, and I love my life. I live with my mom, my dad, and my sister. I like to play basketball and play with my sister, and I also like swimming. I like soccer and writing in my notebook. My favorite strokes in swimming is butterfly and breaststroke. I was born in August of 2007 in Cary. When I was born, I had a lot of problems, but now I am better. I am homeschooled. I love being homeschooled because I can spend time with my mom, and I like to study. I also do piano and horseback riding. I like riding horses after a run. I am 13 years old, and I'll be 14 years old in the summer. I also for exercising lifetime fitness. I like horses a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wing. Next we have Katie Shaw.
Good afternoon. My name is Katie Shaw. Thank you for letting me speak with you today. I hope you see why I think House Bill 453 is so important. I would like to share a little about my wonderful life. I am 36 years old from Indianapolis, Indiana. My parents found out I had Down syndrome when Mom was pregnant. Thankfully, the doctors never mentioned abortion. They said that I would need surgery the day I was born and started planning what would help me have a wonderful life. I have a busy life. It is a wonderful life, probably just like you. I share these things because I believe every life is a wonderful gift. But the older I get, the more I realize not everyone sees it. That is why I wanted to start helping unborn babies, especially. Every person in this room with or without Down syndrome has experienced those things. That is part of each person's wonderful life. Thank you again for letting me speak. I hope you will pass House Bill 453. Help those with Down syndrome have a chance, like us. Make the world more wonderful. I will close with a quote from a wonderful author who said, "I will praise you for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know full well." Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Next we have Paige Bryden.
Thank you. I am here as a post-abortive woman. I had an abortion at 24 years old, and despite the rhetoric that it is the freedom that's offered to us, it is actually the thing that held me in bondage for years until I was healed by Jesus Christ. I have a child with Down syndrome, much to our surprise. He has been the light of our lives, and he has changed us. He is filled with compassion and love. He loves the unlovable. He touches the untouchable. And we are better, our community is better, and I am grateful for him. I thought I was given a special needs child for me to teach him how to live. But the truth is, I was the one with the special needs and given a special needs child to teach me how to live. I am asking you to please, as Katie said, give these children a chance. What happens next? Are we going to have tests for ADHD, for brown hair, for epilepsy? Are we going to be able, when does that start and when does that stop? We need to consider this, folks, for the sake of humanity. Please pass this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next we have Julie Emmons from NC Values.
Hi everyone, my name is Julie Scott Emmons. I'm with NC Values Coalition. The stories you've heard today, the faces, names, smiles, all point to one thing. The fact that every single person, regardless of how many chromosomes they have, has inherent dignity and worth and unlimited potential. Allow me to quickly share a vision for North Carolina. May our beautiful state be a place where the goodness, truth, and beauty of every individual is embraced, where all babies are welcome, where differences are celebrated and the focus is on ability, not disability. A place where true tolerance, inclusion, and justice begin in the womb. Nelson Mandela once said that there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. It's time for North Carolina to join a rising number of states that are passing similar legislation, and we humbly and respectfully ask for your support for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Emmons. Next, Ms. Sue Legal.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Sue Legal with the Susan B. Anthony List, the nation's largest political and policy pro-life organization. In his concurring opinion in Box versus Planned Parenthood of Indiana and Kentucky, Justice Clarence Thomas announced a compelling interest in preventing abortion from becoming a tool of modern eugenics. Now, polling in the United States just a year ago found that 70% of Americans, including 56% of people who say they're pro-choice, agree that abortion should not be used based on the expectation that a child may have Down syndrome. Earlier today, Dr. Tara Sander Lee was testifying before the committee this morning. She had to leave, but she testified that there's a high false positive rate of incorrect reporting with prenatal DNA screening that can exceed 50% when testing for Down syndrome based on a 2014 study in the United States. Just like so many other pitfalls of Roe versus Wade, states are catching on that they can legally assert a compelling interest in protecting humans from discrimination. A disability diagnosis should not be a death sentence. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Ms. Susanna Birdsong.
Hello, my name is Susanna Birdsong, and I'm the Director of Public Affairs for Planned Parenthood South Atlantic. Leading medical organizations agree comprehensive reproductive health care, including abortion, is essential. Our healthcare providers' job is to give their patients evidence-based information and to answer all questions with openness, compassion, and honesty. This bill inappropriately inserts politics into essential healthcare and gives politicians control over private family decisions. By forcing doctors to scrutinize a person's reason for seeking an abortion, this bill discourages honest, confidential conversations and undermines the provider-patient relationship.
The state should not be in the business of telling people how to make these decisions or forcing a person to carry a pregnancy against their will. And for these reasons, I urge you to reject House Bill 453. Thank you.
Next, we have Miss Liz, and I apologize, I can't read this last name.
Bad handwriting. I apologize.
Liz Barber, ACLU of North Carolina. Thank you for having us here today. I would like to follow up on some of Senator Marcus's questions, and that this bill very much does compel a doctor to confirm the reason that someone is getting an abortion. That's on page 2, lines 30 to 35. And that's what distinguishes this bill from the case that was recently decided in the Sixth Circuit that I know they discussed at some length on the House side to suggest that this bill is constitutional. It is not constitutional. It is very different from that Ohio law, in that the Ohio law did not require for the doctor to ask, to confirm. It actually, to quote the Sixth Circuit, it says, HB453, that Ohio bill, does not prohibit her from choosing or obtaining an abortion for any reason. It bars a doctor from aborting a pregnancy when that doctor knows the woman's specific reason, and that reason is a fetal diagnosis of Down syndrome. HB453 would not permit that. It requires that conversation. It requires doctors to inquire as to someone's personal decision regarding bodily autonomy, and for politicians' moral judgment to determine whether or not she's able to get that health care. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Tara Moeller.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for having me. My name is Tara Muller. I'm a policy attorney at Disability Rights North Carolina. We strongly oppose this bill. People with disabilities, including people with Down syndrome, have fought for decades against laws restricting their bodily autonomy. We oppose restrictions on the bodily autonomy of any person, especially in the name of supporting people with disabilities. Forcing someone to carry a pregnancy to term against their will does nothing to advance the rights of people with disabilities. Instead of limiting people's rights, we would ask that you all consider ways to support the lives of people with disabilities. By fully funding the innovations waiver, for example, by reducing the stigma to support community inclusion of people with disabilities. It would be so much less frightening in our state if a family presented with a fetal screening of Down syndrome knew that their baby and their family would get the supports they needed to thrive. Let's get rid of the outdated assumption that raising kids with disabilities is something to be afraid of. Please oppose this bill. Thank you.
Okay, we have Ms. Denise Burke. Mr. Jerry Royal, North Carolina Family Policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jerry Royal. I'm counsel for the North Carolina Family Policy Council. I speak today in support of House Bill 453. In 2013, the General Assembly prohibited sex selection abortions, where the sex of the unborn child is a significant factor in the mother seeking an abortion. House Bill 453 would also prohibit a physician from performing an abortion if they know the abortion is being sought because of the actual presumed race or sex of the unborn child or because of the presence or presumed presence of Down syndrome. The preamble of House Bill 453 states it is well established that human life begins at conception and continues in an unbroken progression from birth until death. It goes on to say that all human beings from conception through death have intrinsic dignity and worth, which includes the inherent right not to suffer discrimination on the basis of innate characteristics such as human beings' race, sex, or genetic characteristics, including any genetic abnormalities. North Carolina's law should value and protect the lives of these precious, vulnerable, innocent babies and prevent discriminatory eugenic abortions. We urge you to support House Bill 453.
Thank you, Mr. Royal. Now, Ms. Tammy Fitzgerald.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Denise Burke's testimony was emailed to members of the committee. She's a senior counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom, and her testimony speaks to the constitutionality of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Ms. Andrea George.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm a private citizen who worked with disabled, with people with Down syndrome in the school system and as adults and, physical exercise capacity. And I have to say, I've never seen people who are more loving and compassionate, and because of that, they have changed the lives of everyone they've encountered, including their parents. So thank you. Please support this bill.
Okay, do we have anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak for or against House Bill 453? Do we have any other questions or comments from members of the committee with respect to House Bill 453? Representative Arts, do you have anything else you'd like to add at this time? Have a motion for favorable report to House Bill 453 from Senator Lazar. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. Favorable as to House Bill 453 with a 0 referral to rules. Thank you. This committee meeting is adjourned.
Hi, I'm Sue Liebel with the Susan B. Anthony list, and it's been a terrific day here at the North Carolina State House. I've been with NC Values all day. We had a hearing this morning on Senate Bill 453 with the Non-Discrimination Act, as well as they were able to pull some strings and get that Judiciary Committee to hear it this afternoon as well. So we were thrilled to have 2 different hearings today, passed out both hearings. But NC Values brought together just the right mix of people with families with their stories to tell, people with Down syndrome, Katie Shaw, and others to talk about what it's like. And then I was able to come from Susan B. Anthony list with some national information, and Dr. Tara Sander-Lee from the Charlotte Lozier Institute, who has a lot of research and molecular background. So NC Values brought us all together today. It was an interesting mix of people. And the legislators we've been able to meet today, watching the bill work through the process and watching the expertise of the NC Value staff has just been an exhilarating day. A very successful day here at the State House. On behalf of Susan B. Anthony list, it's our pleasure to be here and count you all among friends. Thanks for having us.